guest.
It's been a particularly turbulent week in Syria. On Monday, the United States and Turkey sparred over the fate of US allied Kurdish fighters there. Then on Wednesday, 4 US soldiers were killed and 3 wounded by a blast in the Syrian town of Manbij. International politics aside, over 5 million Syrians have been forced to flee the country since the conflict began 8 years ago. Most of them are living in neighbouring Turkey, Lebanon and Iraq. 12,000 Syrian refugees are now here in France. I'm joined in the studio now by my colleague Rosie Collier, who's been reporting on some initiatives for refugees in Paris. And I'd also like to welcome our special guest, Kavita Brahmbhatt, who is also helping Syrian refugees find jobs here in France. So thank you very much to you both. Let's start with Kavita. You're the co-founder of Action Emploi Réfugiés. What kinds of challenges do refugees face when looking for work here in France?
Just to clarify, Action Emploi Réfugiés gets jobs for all refugees, not just Syrian refugees. And the challenges are across the board. Pretty much we'll start with languages. So if you're not francophone, speaking the language is a big obstacle to getting a job. Even if you are francophone, a lot of francophone-speaking, French-speaking refugees from Congo, from Central African Republic have to go through a remise au niveau, like getting back up to scratch classes to speak French properly for the workplace. After that, there are many other of the common ones, how to look for a job, people not knowing the social and cultural norms of how to look for a job in France. But there's also like something that we always forget, which is the lack of self-confidence. And exile means that you go through these steps in life that diminish your confidence in yourself, and getting to a state to apply for a job and feel good about it and feel confident is very difficult for a lot of refugees, and that is a huge obstacle and one we tend to forget.
Now, there's a perception that Syrian refugees are well educated. Is it true? And if so, how does it play out in the employment market?
Well, I'd mentioned to someone earlier, but the perception of refugees and Syrian refugees being well educated is correct. But I have to say that most of the refugees in France are well educated in comparison to the people who have just crossed their borders to go to either Kenya or Ethiopia, etc., because they're the more educated, they're probably better networked, the wealthier refugees who tend to make it to Europe in any case. And with Syrians, they are generally, the level of education in Syria was pretty high when the war started, primary education, secondary education. So yes, we have a great deal of very educated, qualified Syrian refugees here, and we also have people who have worked in agriculture who are less well educated. But in general, we're extremely lucky that we have the number of refugees we have in France with the education, the skills that they have, but also the motivation and the real willingness, which is what I see every day, to contribute, to make a life for themselves and to be a success, because they are tomorrow's citizens, you know, for France. As soon as they get their status, they have the droit commun, which is they have the same rights as French people apart from the right to vote. And they are committed to being part of the society that they're living in. And we see that all the time. And it's a big difference to what people normally perceive of a refugee. And it is kind of our eternal struggle to show people that. So
It's very interesting. And there are over 1 million Syrian refugees in Germany. You'll remember back in 2015, Angela Merkel pretty much opened the gates. And then there's another 4 million elsewhere. I mean, what impact is this brain drain having on Syria? Or perhaps if you're, maybe you have examples from other countries.
Yeah, I think all these mass movements of people to different countries, whether it's across the border or to Germany or France, it has an enormous impact on the development of a country. So in the case of Rwanda, for example, it had an impact on them. In the case of Vietnam, the same, etc. But it's evidently and obviously going to have an impact on the development of Syria. But the good thing is that when people start working here, I mean, maybe it's their loss, but it's definitely our gain. And the history of diaspora is that they contribute in terms of remittances in the future, and there are other ways to contribute to your country as a diaspora, and it's a long sort of area of thought and development within migration policy is to look at migration and development and how it can contribute and combat brain drain. So hopefully that will feature in the future of Syria, even if people do not and cannot go back.
Okay, so one man's loss is another man's gain,
Exactly.
so the saying goes. So tell us about a couple of Action Emploi Réfugiés success stories involving Syrian refugees and perhaps others.
Involving Syrian refugees. Well, I mean, one particularly that touched my heart as a mother is having someone who came in. She's a single mom. She came into the first course with her baby. She came into the second course with her baby, and the baby grew. And she used to come in for writing CV, going to presenting herself at interviews. And then she got a call from an employer saying, "I've got an interview tomorrow." And she called us saying, "Can you coach me before?" And so she came in with her baby, and she just called us up the other day to say that she got the job. And so, yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, it shows that we really have an added value towards like coaching and helping people to get through this process, even if it's them who's doing it themselves and they're the ones who get the credit. But it's also good to know that we're also this open space that welcomes everyone, baby, not baby, wherever you come from, it's just magic. And whenever I go to the organization, we're 7 people. We're all women, apart from one in Bordeaux. And it's like a home, it's like a family. And a lot of refugees say that to us. And so, yeah, it's something that we're really proud of. And apart from this Syrian refugee story, we've had lots of other people go into the hotel industry to work in care homes, and someone who is very dear to my heart, a man called Hafiz, who spent 9 months sleeping under a bridge in Paris, who then suddenly told me he's a tailor, and then he made a pair of trousers for us, and then he made a whole collection of clothes for us, and now he's been hired by a haute couture house to make haute couture wedding dresses. I mean, it's
what a beautiful
it's like
story, really, really beautiful. Yeah, and I was admiring your jacket actually.
I bought
meeting
it.
you.
Still.
Okay,
No,
really,
but
really, really
it's,
nice.
That's what makes me
heartening.
want to do that job.
Just quickly, at what point do they come to your organisation? Because I'm imagining when they arrive, they're not going to come straight away. They're going to take time to do paperwork. I mean, they've come with nothing. So it must take them a few months or perhaps years before they get the courage to come and ask for help.
You're right, actually. And it's something perhaps I'd never thought of. But with Syrian refugees, it's much quicker because I used to live in Syria. A lot of my friends are here who are Syrians, and the word gets around the community much quicker. So as soon as they trust you or people trust you, they'll come and see you. But it's always a step. You need your refugee status first, and then you go and seek this help. But you're right. It's like it depends, and sometimes they go through the government. But we've got very tight networks with all of the social work agencies that help refugees, with the government agencies that they have to go through first, even with Pôle Emploi, the job seekers agency. So we've got multiple entry points, and generally, as soon as people get their status, they come and see us. So, yeah, I mean, we've got no end of traffic through our doors. And I mean, it's a daily amazement to see how many different, cool, interesting, talented people there are in this country. And I just, people need to know that.
Yes, they do. They do. Now, besides finding jobs for refugees, what other kinds of support does the organisation Action Emploi Réfugiés offer?
Well, actually, to get jobs, you need to also offer help to employers.
Aha.
So that's the other side of what we do, is we really help employers understand what a refugee is. And the big obstacle and the challenge that we have all the time is employers do not know that refugees have the right to work. And I mean, we're stupid to think that everyone should know this, but the reality is, when you see the media, when people talk about migrants and asylum seekers, refugees is a refugee with their refugee status. When they get the status, they have the right to work. If you clarify that with any employer, the big wall goes down and employers are really happy. They're like, wow, this is a motivated workforce all of a sudden, and the conversation change. So this is a lot of the work we do, is sort of talking to employers, individuals, small and medium-sized enterprises and big corporates, to try and tell them about the workforce potentially here to help them. And then And then what I said earlier, it's kind of creating a very warm and welcoming environment for refugees and really focusing on the well-being and the happiness. I know it sounds pathetic, but it's really important. You've been away from your home. Homesickness sucks. You know, if you know you cannot go back to your home and you've had to flee your home, it's heartbreaking, you know, and we owe it to people like in that situation to create a space where they just feel happy and they can leave with just a little bit more self-confidence. So we do that, and we also invest in psychosocial support for refugees so we can move forward to sort of building up confidence as a part of like finding the job. So yeah.
Fascinating, really. No, very inspiring
Come
story.
and visit us.
Where are you? I was
In
going to say, how do
Bastille.
people find you? You're in Bastille.
You have to email us, otherwise it will be quite complicated.
Okay.
But we're in Bastille, and basically, if you're a refugee or an employer, you can email us at contact@actionemploirefugiés.com or .com, and then
Contact
get a
no S.
contact no S.
No S,
exactly.
okay.
And if not, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere, and as Action Emploi Réfugiés, and all of the news comes through there. So yeah, I mean, and thank you. It's been a pleasure to be able to talk to you about.
Thank
the
you.
work.
Fascinating initiative.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
bravo.
Kavita Brahmbhatt from the Action Emploi Réfugiés. Thank you so much for joining us on Paris Live today.
Pleasure.